Hello and welcome to the new faculty staff bus tour. My name is Stephen Middleton. I will not be on the bus with you this year. I sadly am going to have a surgical operation and I will not be able to attend. I'm trying to get all my affairs in order before school starts back on the 17th. So thank you for being patient with me. I feel like the Wizard of Oz talking to you all this way, but thank you all, and thank you all for taking the time to go on this bus tour. A lot of planning and a lot of effort goes into having this tour every year. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Stephen Middleton. I've been a part of the new faculty and staff bus tour since 2008 when I was a new faculty member in the Department of Communication and Media. As my role on the bus over the years has always been to talk a little bit about our service region and present a few of the documentary pieces that I've produced about our region. First off though, for you new faculty and staff, talk a little bit about our region. For those of you who are not from Eastern Kentucky or Central Appalachia, a little bit about our region. Central Appalachia is one of the most impoverished regions in the nation. Our university, Morehead State University, is truly a guiding light to the counties. When you start to look at especially education and where people from the surrounding counties go to college and receive their degrees, especially in going back to their communities, it starts here at Morehead State University. Morehead State University has a rich and storied history, but it all started with spreading the light to the mountains all the way back in 1887. One of the things I always found amazing in the years I've been here is at graduation every year when Dr. Andrews says, well, if you are the first member of your family to receive a college education, please stand up. And 56% of the students graduating stand up. And in the 8 years that I've been here, it still tends to be a little over or around half of the student body graduating stands up. So you're dealing with a lot of students who are still first generation college students. And there's a couple things to think about. And, one is family. Appalachian people are very close kin, so to speak. Families first. They very, very much so love their families. And if a family member is sick, they may be gone a week, 2 weeks. It's nothing odd for them to go spend time with their family. It's something to think about as a faculty member or as a staff member that's working with students. Think about the role students play. But also keep in mind your role in trying to continue to help spread that light to the mountains. All the way back to Frank and Phoebe Button, who came in a time when the Rowan County War or the Martin Tolliver feud had just ended, a bloody feud that was far worse than the Hatfield-McCoys. Their mission at that time was to spread a light to the mountains, help enlighten and help guide the mountain peoples, and that's what we're continuing to do today. So congratulations on the new hires, faculty and staff. And I hope to see you all at some point. I produce documentaries, some good, some bad, I'm not going to lie. But if anyone would ever have any questions, feel free to contact me. This first film you're about to see is called Maintaining the Mountains, the Preservation of Appalachian Music. This is actually the first documentary I ever produced. Presently, I've produced 8 documentaries, and I have 2 going right now, which has been keeping me busy this summer. But Maintaining the Mountains came out of the idea of when I started to study and learn a little bit about ethnomusicology, folk music, traditional Appalachian music, bluegrass even, but just studying the language and sort of the cultural traditions of the music here in our region. And when you would talk to certain people about the music, they would immediately stereotype it and say, well, I don't want to listen to that banjo music. That's nothing but rednecks. That's nothing but, uncultured hillbillies. And I always found that very offensive. And I started to try to learn traditional music, and especially play old-time banjo, and found out that a lot of the people in our community that played this type of music were scholars. They were professors. They were school teachers of some sort. They were historians. And I produced this documentary to deal with that negative stereotype of our region. Robert Schinken, Pulitzer-winning author, writer, playwright, once said, "The Appalachian people are the last people that you're allowed to make fun of in America and get away with it." So we have this long-running stereotype, and it keeps continuing. At least 10 to 12 shows are currently on the History Channel, these reality-based television shows about our region and ruralness of our region and how backwards and the jobs they do. And again, this film was trying to shed light on the music and the stereotypes, and this stereotype goes all the way back to newspaper cartoons, Little Abner. A lot of it started with the Hatfield and McCoy feud, but this is called Maintaining the Mountains. It's starting to get a little bit dated. This was produced in 2008, but I hope it can help enlighten you here on this tour today. And if you would have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Appalachia has always been a place apart. From the settling of the rugged mountain frontier to establishing society and culture amongst diverse backgrounds and rural settings. Unique amongst the mountains were the melting together of musical styles and influences from all over the world, creating Appalachian mountain music, music exclusive to the culture and communities of Appalachia. From the earliest sources of national media, Appalachians and mountain music have been stereotyped as unintelligent, lazy, feuding hillbillies. For what was once a distinguishable element of Appalachia, the music has slowly and silently faded away, replaced with the long-running stereotypes placed upon it. I destroyed that wild boy's soul. Today, modern Appalachian archivists, university scholars, Appalachian historians, and musicians have preserved the music of the past and allowed a new generation to experience a rich part of its history and artistic innovations of a proud mountain people. He says, "Darling, now you're left alone." They carried me down to Frankfort town and they threw me into jail. And the saddest thing I ever knew, little Lulu wouldn't go my bail. I've been in my, I make my living primarily as an artist, and a lot of people, they want Appalachia to be just like everybody else. So my art, I feel like, comes in and says, we're not. Yeah, it used to make me ashamed a little bit too, where you almost wouldn't want to admit where you're from sometimes if you went somewhere, especially a big city. Is there something horribly wrong with that?
No acceptance, or very low acceptance of anything that had to do with hillbilly or country or anything like that.
Reckon you'd make a hollering noise too if you was to lay egg like that.
Man, oh man.
Part of getting away from that traditional music is people being afraid of that negative sort of hillbilly stereotype.
The hot fields.
That music represents that to a lot of people. A lot of times even you'll go back home and you'll play the banjo and you get the same little comments that you do anywhere else these days. Like they want to hear you play the theme song from Deliverance, or they want to hear something that's just completely, that you don't care anything about.
Sounds like that one up there.
I think that was a big reason I didn't pursue this kind of music when I was younger. Anytime I'd have even a mandolin, everybody would call it a banjo, and it was just that stereotype of the imagery that you get from those instruments. It's funny because I think the older we get in this culture, the more people start to relate to their heritage, and I see a lot of the students, college-age students, be attracted to that idea, that they're kind of embracing their past. And but you get a lot of people that age who don't want anything to do with it except to make fun of it.
One of the reasons why bluegrass was successful is that the first generation of bluegrassers made a very focused attempt to not present that way. Whenever Bill Monroe would come out on the Grand Ole Opry, he came out with a band that was decked out. They were dressed to the hilt. Really did that on purpose, you know, to steer people away from this stereotype of a hillbilly. Pictures of my family, my grandfather and his brothers playing, and they always were dressed nice in the 30s, in the 20s and 30s. They always dressed nice. Fit every other stereotype, you know. They were, a lot of them were heavy drinkers, and they weren't very well educated, and they, you know, I've heard stories about people busting instruments over each other's heads and that kind of thing. But they were dressed nice. They tried to appear as something different than this stereotype.
In love with her? Yes, sir. An awful fool. Oh, it wasn't for you bought me.
When my father after he started preaching, he didn't let anyone on the outside know that he did, because he wasn't supposed to. But he would still get the old banjo out. He was the old-time banjo picker, and play and sing to make us kids laugh. You know, Arkansas Traveler and all those songs like that that he knew. And but the funny thing about it, there was always conflicts within those people, and there was a terrible conflict within him. I think he would have liked to have been like another Uncle Dave Macon or somebody like that, and I think he could very well have been.
There's a little rosewood casket laying on a marble shelf, and a package of old letters written by my true love's hand. Go and get them for me, sister. Read them over and over to me. I have often tried to read them, but for tears I could not see.
These collectors, John Herod, Mark Wilson, and Gus Mead, and all these guys who did the bulk of the field work in the 70s and 80s, they've been very gracious in donating their materials and letting universities such as Morehead and Berea and U of L have access to these and digitize them.
A number of musicians were getting up in years, traditional musicians were getting up in years, and these were the folks who the term oftentimes is thrown around a bit, who were tradition bearers, who had learned their music, fiddle tunes for instance, early 1900s, from elderly or up in years individuals, of pressure at that time of not just the endangered musical abilities of these individuals in the 1960s and 70s, but these individuals might have taken to the grave tunes that were being played much, much earlier.
The only thing that has saved us from that stuff just being gone has been the same technology of recording it and having recordings, having guys like John Harrod and Gus Mead and Mark Wilson and Nancy McClellan and Jamie Wells and, you know, all these guys that went around with tape recorders and recorded people. You know, what happened with those guys, I'm sure John told you, is that he caught the last of these people that learned pre-radio and pre-recordings in old age and recorded them, and really just that last slice of common people, not these big figures around, like, and not even this tiny slice really like that Alan Lomax got in the 30s. You know, it was a pretty tiny slice of extremely isolated pockets.
I'd already been recording everybody I could on a little cassette recorder. Again, just because it was there and nobody else was paying attention to it. And I didn't really think it was going to disappear, but I thought it was pretty important that somebody be getting it. I mean, those people were going to die because they were all old, but I didn't think it was going to disappear. But I knew it was important for somebody there that knew about it to make sure it was all kept. I was born in Kentucky. I've lived here all my life except for 2 years, and you know, my motive was to learn to play the fiddle the way they did, and you know, whatever money I made doing that has been negligible. I mean, I've spent far more of my time and my money to sort of help these things along than I've ever made money off of it.
When some of the collectors began getting out and doing field work, they did find that there were people sitting around on their back porches still playing. And there were lots and lots of people when people started collecting, you know, like Sharp and the different ones. They were surprised to find how many songs that these people still knew. And of course, you don't, unless you're singing that, you could not probably remember all those words.
It's never going to be a commercially successful music. It's not going to sell millions of albums naturally, but it's a music that can hopefully pass on our past.
A lot of people don't even know what you mean by old time. You know, they don't know really what you mean if you say you're playing folk music. It's real crazy how that music is not, you know, general public doesn't really, know what it even was.
We have missed several opportunities